Found in the ashes. The smoke never really cleared from Neo-Singapore. 15 years had passed since the Zephyrians first descended from the stars, and the city still looked like a graveyard of twisted metal and broken dreams. Captain Elena Rodriguez pulled her mask tighter as she stepped through the rubble, her boots crunching on glass and debris that had once been someone's home. "Another dead zone," Sergeant Jake Morrison muttered behind her. His massive frame cast a shadow over the smaller stones scattered at their feet. "Why do we keep coming back here?" Elena didn't answer immediately. She scanned the horizon, where skeletal remains of skyscrapers reached toward a gray sky. The Zephyrians had been thorough in their destruction. When they wanted a city gone, they made sure it stayed gone. But something always drew her team back to these ruins. Maybe it was hope. Maybe it was stubbornness. "Because people survived in stranger places," she finally said. "And the supplies don't collect themselves." The salvage mission was routine. Find anything useful among the wreckage, bring it back to Base Alpha 7, and try not to think about the families that once lived here. Elena had done this dance 100 times before. But today felt different. The air was too quiet, too still. They moved deeper into the ruins, past collapsed shopping centers and buried vehicles. The team spread out in formation, their weapons ready but not raised. Nothing lived here anymore. Nothing should live here anymore. That's when Elena heard it. A soft humming, like a child's lullaby drifting through the dead air. She raised her fist, and the team froze. Morrison's hand moved to his rifle. The other soldiers formed a defensive circle, their eyes scanning for threats. But all Elena could focus on was that sound, impossibly gentle in a place where gentleness had died long ago. "Did you hear that?" she whispered into her comm. "Negative, Captain," came the reply from Corporal Davis. "All quiet on my end." Elena frowned. The humming continued, growing slightly louder. She followed the sound through a gap between two collapsed buildings, stepping carefully over twisted metal beams and chunks of concrete. The melody was familiar, something she remembered from her own childhood, but she couldn't place it. Then she saw her. A small figure sat cross-legged in a pocket of space where 3 walls had fallen together, creating a tiny shelter. The girl couldn't have been more than 4 years old, with dark hair that fell in tangled waves around her face. She wore clothes that had once been white, but were now stained with dust and time. Most remarkably, she was completely calm. "Team, I need you here," Elena called softly. "Now." The girl looked up as the soldiers approached, her dark eyes meeting Elena's without fear. There was something unsettling about that gaze, something too knowing for someone so young. She should have been crying, terrified, or at least startled by their sudden appearance. Instead, she simply watched them with curious interest. "Hello," the girl said, her voice clear and steady. "I was waiting for you." Elena's blood ran cold. "Waiting for us? How long have you been here?" The girl tilted her head, considering the question. "Since the sky burned. But I knew you would come today." Morrison stepped forward, his weapon lowered but ready. "Captain, this doesn't feel right. How could a kid survive out here? What's she been eating? Where did she get water?" Elena knelt down to the girl's level, trying to keep her voice gentle. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Maya," the girl replied. "Maya Chen. And you're Captain Rodriguez. You lost your brother in the first attack on Mumbai. You dream about him sometimes, but you never tell anyone because you think it makes you weak." The words hit Elena like a physical blow. She stumbled backward, her heart racing. No one knew about her brother. No one knew about the dreams. She had never spoken about either to anyone in her unit. "How do you know that?" she whispered. Maya smiled, an expression that seemed too old for her face. "I know lots of things, like how Sergeant Morrison carries a picture of his daughter in his left pocket, even though he tells everyone he doesn't have a family, and how Corporal Davis is scared of the dark because of what happened in the tunnels under Berlin." Morrison's hand instinctively moved to his pocket, his face pale. Davis took a step back, his mouth open in shock. "This is impossible," Davis breathed. "She's just a kid. How could she?" "Look out!" Maya suddenly shouted, pointing toward the sky. Elena spun around just in time to see 3 Zephyrian scout drones descending from the clouds, their blue energy weapons already charging. The team had been so focused on the girl that they had missed the approaching threat entirely. "Cover. Now." Elena barked, but Maya was already moving. The small girl rolled behind a piece of debris and called out coordinates. "Morrison, 45 degrees left. Elevation 20. Davis, straight ahead. Wait for the third one to bank right. Captain, the middle drone has a damaged stabilizer on the port side." Elena didn't have time to question how Maya knew these things. She followed the girl's instructions, targeting the damaged stabilizer. Her shot struck true, sending the drone spinning out of control before it crashed into a pile of rubble. Morrison and Davis followed their directions as well, their shots perfectly timed to catch the other 2 drones at their most vulnerable moments. Within seconds, all 3 scouts were nothing but smoking scrap metal. The team stood in stunned silence, their weapons still raised, adrenaline pumping through their veins. Elena turned to Maya, who had calmly emerged from behind her cover, as if nothing had happened. "How did you know they were coming?" Elena asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Maya shrugged, a gesture that seemed absurdly normal after what had just occurred. "I always know when they're coming. I can feel them in the air, like a storm that hasn't started raining yet." Elena looked at her team, seeing her own confusion and fear reflected in their faces. Morrison was the first to speak. "Captain, we need to get back to base. Now. Command needs to know about this." Elena nodded, still staring at Maya. "Can you walk, sweetheart? We're going to take you somewhere safe." "I know," Maya said simply. "To base Alpha 7. Commander Walsh will want to meet me. She's been wondering if there are others like me." Another impossible statement, another piece of knowledge that Maya shouldn't have. Elena felt like the ground was shifting beneath her feet, but she forced herself to focus on the immediate situation. "Let's move out," she ordered. "Full alert." If she could sense those drones, there might be more. As they made their way back through the ruins, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that everything had just changed. Maya walked beside her, seemingly unaffected by the weight of the gear strapped to Elena's back or the tension radiating from the other soldiers. She hummed quietly to herself, the same melody Elena had heard earlier. "That song," Elena said. "What is it?" Maya looked up at her with those impossibly knowing eyes. "It's something my mother used to sing before the sky burned. She said it would help me remember who I am when everything else was forgotten." "And who are you, Maya?" The girl smiled again, that unsettling expression that belonged on an older face. "I'm the one they didn't expect. The one they made by accident when they tried to break us." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. "They? You mean the Zephyrians?" But Maya had already turned her attention back to the path ahead, humming her mother's lullaby as they walked through the graveyard of human civilization. The journey back to base Alpha 7 took 6 hours through hostile territory. Maya never complained, never asked for water or rest, and never seemed tired. More unsettling, she continued to demonstrate an uncanny ability to sense danger before it arrived. Twice she warned them about Zephyrian patrols, allowing the team to take alternate routes that avoided contact entirely. When they finally reached the base, word of their unusual passenger had already spread. Commander Sarah Walsh was waiting for them at the main gate, her stern face betraying nothing of her thoughts. "Captain Rodriguez," she said formally, "I understand you've brought us a guest." Elena nodded, her hand resting protectively on Maya's shoulder. "Yes, Mom. This is Maya Chen. We found her in the ruins of Neo-Singapore." Walsh knelt down to Maya's level, studying the girl with the same intensity she usually reserved for tactical reports. "Hello, Maya. I'm Commander Walsh. Can you tell me how long you've been living in the ruins?" Maya tilted her head, considering the question. Since the Zephyrians poisoned the water supply in Sector 7, you were going to send a patrol there tomorrow, but you should wait. The contamination levels won't be safe for another week. Walsh's expression didn't change, but Elena saw her jaw tighten slightly. Sector 7 was classified information. The contamination report had been completed only hours ago, and the patrol schedule hadn't been finalized yet. I see, Walsh said carefully. And how do you know about Sector 7? Maya smiled that too-old smile. The same way I knew Captain Rodriguez would find me today. The same way I know that you've been getting reports about children like me from other bases. Children who survived things they shouldn't have survived, who know things they shouldn't know. Walsh stood slowly, her eyes never leaving Maya's face. Take her to medical for a full evaluation. Then bring her to my office. We need to talk. As Elena led Maya away, she heard the commander speaking quietly into her comm unit. Get me General Morrison at Central Command. Tell him we found another one. Another one. The words echoed in Elena's mind as they walked through the corridors of Base Alpha 7. How many others were there? How many children like Maya had been found in the ruins of destroyed cities? In the medical bay, Dr. Susan Park ran every test she could think of. Maya's physical condition was remarkable for someone who had supposedly been living alone in a wasteland for years. She was slightly undernourished but otherwise healthy. Her reflexes were faster than normal. Her coordination beyond what should be possible for a 4-year-old. But it was the neural scans that truly puzzled the doctor. Her brain activity is off the charts, Dr. Park told Elena quietly, while Maya sat on the examination table, swinging her legs and humming. The areas associated with pattern recognition, spatial awareness, and predictive analysis are hyperactive. It's like her mind is constantly processing information at a level that should be impossible for someone her age. Elena watched Maya through the observation window. The girl seemed perfectly content, examining the medical equipment with calm curiosity. Is she human? Genetically, yes. But there are anomalies in her neural structure that I've never seen before. It's as if her brain has been enhanced somehow. The word hung in the air like a threat. Enhanced. By whom? And why? Commander Walsh's office was sparse and functional, like everything else in the military base. Maya sat in a chair that was too big for her, her feet barely touching the floor, while Elena stood at attention beside her. At ease, Captain, Walsh said, her eyes focused on Maya. I think we're past formalities at this point. Elena relaxed slightly but remained alert. She had served under Walsh for 3 years and had never seen her commander look so unsettled. Maya, Walsh began, I need you to understand something. The information you've shared with us today is very sensitive. Lives depend on keeping certain things secret. Maya nodded solemnly. I understand. But secrets are hard to keep when everyone is thinking so loudly. Walsh blinked. Thinking loudly. People's thoughts make noise, like music or static. Captain Rodriguez thinks about her brother when she's worried. You think about the reports from other bases when you look at me. Dr. Park thinks about her daughter when she sees children who are hurt. Elena felt the blood drain from her face. You can read minds. Maya shook her head. Not exactly. It's more like feeling the shape of what people are thinking. Their emotions, their fears, their hopes. It's strongest when they're feeling something intense. Walsh leaned forward, her voice carefully controlled. Maya, I need to ask you something very important. Do you remember anything about how you got these abilities? Anything about what happened to you before you were found in the ruins? For the first time since they had found her, Maya's composure cracked slightly. Her eyes grew distant, and she wrapped her arms around herself. I remember the lights, she said quietly. Blue lights, like the ones on their ships, and voices, but not human voices. They were studying something, trying to understand how human minds work. Elena felt sick. The Zephyrians experimented on you. Maya nodded slowly. On me and others. They wanted to know what made humans so stubborn, why we kept fighting even when we couldn't win. They thought if they could understand our minds, they could break our spirit. Walsh's hands clenched into fists. What happened to the others? Most of them died, Maya said simply. The process wasn't supposed to work on children. Our brains are still growing, still changing. We adapted to what they did to us instead of breaking. The room fell silent. Elena stared at Maya, this small girl who had somehow survived alien experimentation and emerged with abilities that defied explanation. The implications were staggering. How many others are there? Walsh asked. Maya closed her eyes, as if listening to something only she could hear. 7 that I can sense clearly. Maybe more that are too far away or too hidden. They scattered us after the experiments, probably hoping we would die in the ruins. Walsh stood and walked to the window that overlooked the training grounds. Instead, you survived. And now you're more than they bargained for. We're not weapons, Maya said firmly. We're just different. We see patterns, feel connections that others miss. We know when danger is coming because we can sense the intentions behind it. Elena found her voice. Maya, what you did today, warning us about those drones. How far in advance can you sense threats? Maya considered the question. It depends. Sometimes minutes, sometimes hours. The stronger the intention, the clearer the warning. The Zephyrians are planning something big, something that will happen soon. I've been feeling it for weeks, like a storm building on the horizon. Walsh turned back to them, her expression grim. What kind of something? An attack on the remaining human strongholds. They're tired of this war dragging on. They want to end it quickly, decisively. Maya's voice was matter-of-fact, as if she were discussing the weather. They've been gathering ships, more than they've ever assembled in one place. Elena felt her heart skip a beat. How do you know this? Because I can feel their commanders thinking about it. Their excitement, their confidence. They believe they found a way to break human resistance once and for all. Walsh activated her comm system immediately. Get me General Morrison. Priority Alpha. As the commander spoke in urgent, coded language to Central Command, Elena knelt down beside Maya's chair. Are you scared? She asked gently. Maya looked at her with those 2 old eyes. I was scared in the ruins. Scared and alone. And hungry. But not anymore. Now I have purpose. What purpose? Maya's smile was small but determined. To make sure they never succeed. To protect the people who protected me. To be the surprise they never saw coming. Elena felt a mixture of pride and fear wash over her. This child had been through horrors that would have broken most adults, yet she had emerged not bitter or broken, but determined to fight back. Commander, Elena said, turning to Walsh who had finished her call. I request permission to serve as Maya's guardian and training supervisor. Walsh studied Elena for a long moment. This isn't a normal assignment, Captain. We don't know what she's truly capable of, or what the long-term effects of her modifications might be. With respect, ma'am, we don't have time for normal. If Maya is right about this coming attack, we need every advantage we can get. Maya stood up in her chair, her small frame somehow radiating authority. I don't need a guardian, but I would like a teacher. Someone who can help me understand how to use what I am to protect what matters. Walsh nodded slowly. Very well. Captain Rodriguez, you're hereby assigned as Maya's primary handler and instructor. Your mission is to help her develop her abilities while ensuring she remains human. Elena understood the weight of that last word. It would be easy for someone with Maya's capabilities to become something cold, calculating, inhuman. Her job was to make sure that didn't happen. As they left the commander's office, Maya slipped her small hand into Elena's. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For seeing me as more than just a weapon. For wanting to help me stay me. Elena squeezed her hand gently. That's what family does, Maya. And like it or not, you're part of our family now. Maya smiled, and for the first time, it looked like the expression of a 4-year-old child rather than an ancient soul trapped in a young body. I like that, she said. "I've never had a family before." As they walked through the corridors of Base Alpha 7, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. The war with the Zephyrians had been going on for 15 years, a grinding conflict that had cost humanity dearly. But now they had something the aliens had never expected. A weapon forged from their own cruelty, a child who could see their plans before they acted on them. Maya Chen was more than a survivor. She was hope walking on small feet, humming her mother's lullaby as she prepared to change the course of a war. The Zephyrians had made a mistake when they tried to break the human spirit. Instead, they had created something that would break them. They just didn't know it yet. Beyond human limits. 8 years had passed since Captain Elena Rodriguez found Maya Chen in the ruins of Neo Singapore. The 4-year-old girl who had hummed lullabies while predicting drone attacks had grown into something extraordinary. At 12, Maya stood as tall as most teenagers, her dark eyes holding depths that seemed to contain entire galaxies of knowledge and sorrow. Base Alpha 7 had become her home, and the soldiers her family. She trained with them, ate with them, and earned their respect through actions rather than words. But everyone knew she was different. When Maya walked through the corridors, conversations quieted, not from fear, but from a kind of reverence that made Elena uncomfortable. "She's not a goddess," Elena muttered to Sergeant Morrison as they watched Maya disassemble and reassemble a plasma rifle blindfolded. Her movements were fluid, precise, as if the weapon's components were extensions of her own fingers. Morrison, now graying at the temples but still built like a mountain, chuckled softly. "Tell that to the recruits. Half of them think she can walk on water." "Can she?" Elena asked, only half joking. Maya's head turned toward them, despite being on the other side of the training facility with her back to them. She smiled and called out, "I've never tried, but the physics would be challenging." Elena shook her head. Maya's enhanced senses had only grown stronger over the years. She could hear whispered conversations from across a room, sense emotional states through micro-expressions, and predict tactical movements with an accuracy that bordered on precognition. "Time," announced Sergeant Davis, now Maya's primary weapons instructor. 47 seconds. New record. Maya removed her blindfold and bowed slightly to the assembled recruits who had been watching in stunned silence. "Practice and understanding the mechanical relationships," she said simply. "Anyone can learn this with enough repetition." But Elena knew it wasn't true. Maya's mind processed information differently than normal humans. Dr. Park's continued neural scans showed activity patterns that resembled advanced artificial intelligence, more than organic brain function. A sharp alarm cut through the air, followed by Commander Walsh's voice over the intercom. "All senior staff to the briefing room. Priority Alpha. Maya Chen report immediately." Elena felt her stomach drop. Priority Alpha meant only one thing. The war was escalating. The briefing room was packed with Base Alpha 7's top personnel. Maya sat between Elena and Morrison, her small frame dwarfed by the adult officers around her, but her presence commanded attention nonetheless. Commander Walsh, now showing the gray hair and worry lines of someone who had spent too many years fighting an unwinnable war, activated the holographic display. A 3-dimensional map of the solar system appeared, showing Earth, Mars, and the asteroid belt. "Intelligence confirms Maya's predictions from 8 years ago." Walsh began without preamble. "The Zephyrians are massing their largest fleet ever assembled. More than 3,000 ships, including their Fortress-class dreadnoughts." The room filled with quiet murmurs of concern. Elena watched Maya's face, which remained impassive even as the implications sank in. "Their target?" asked Colonel Harrison, the base's tactical commander. "Mars Colony Epsilon," Walsh replied. "Our primary research facility and the location of Project Lazarus." Elena's blood ran cold. Project Lazarus was humanity's last desperate gambit, an attempt to reverse engineer Zephyrian technology to create weapons capable of penetrating their energy shields. If the facility fell, humanity's chance of developing effective countermeasures would die with it. Estimated timeline: Morrison asked. 72 hours, Walsh said grimly. Maybe less. Maya spoke for the first time, her young voice cutting through the adult discussion with quiet authority. They're not just targeting the research facility. There's something else there, something they want to retrieve. All eyes turned to her. Walsh leaned forward. What do you mean? Maya closed her eyes, her brow furrowed in concentration. When she spoke, her voice was distant, as if she were seeing something far away. I can feel their commander's thoughts. There's excitement, but also urgency. They're not just trying to destroy something. They're trying to recover it. Recover what? Colonel Harrison demanded. Maya's eyes snapped open, and Elena saw fear there for the first time in years. The other children, the ones who survived the experiments. They're being held at Mars Colony Epsilon. The room erupted in shocked voices, but Walsh raised her hand for silence. Maya, are you certain? Maya nodded slowly. 7 of us scattered after the experiments. I'm here, but the others, they were captured during various raids over the years. The Zephyrians have been keeping them, studying them, trying to understand what went wrong with their original plan. Elena felt sick. You mean there are others like you being held prisoner? Not like me, Maya said quietly. The experiments affected each of us differently. I can sense thoughts and predict danger. But the others, they developed different abilities. Enhanced strength, electromagnetic manipulation, perfect memory, accelerated healing. Morrison whistled low. A whole squad of enhanced humans. The Zephyrians want to either reclaim them or eliminate them, Maya continued. They've realized that we represent a threat they never anticipated. Humans who can match their capabilities. Commander Walsh stood, her decision already made. We can't let either happen. Colonel Harrison, I want every available ship prepared for immediate departure to Mars. This is now our top priority. Ma'am, Elena said, standing as well. Request permission to lead the rescue mission. Denied, Captain. You're too valuable to risk on. With respect, Commander, Maya interrupted. Captain Rodriguez is the only person I trust to lead this mission, and you'll need me to find the others. Walsh stared at Maya for a long moment. The girl had never directly challenged authority before, but her tone made it clear this wasn't a request. Maya, you're 12 years old. This is a combat mission in hostile territory. Maya stood, and despite her youth, something in her posture commanded respect. Commander, with respect, I stopped being 12 years old the day the Zephyrians experimented on me. I've been preparing for this my entire life. Elena watched the exchange with growing pride and terror. Maya was right. She had been shaped by war, trained by necessity, and honed by purpose. But she was still a child, and Elena's protective instincts screamed against bringing her into active combat. The decision is made, Walsh said finally. Captain Rodriguez will lead a strike team to Mars Colony Epsilon. The mission parameters are simple. Extract the captured enhanced humans and destroy any research data the Zephyrians might have gathered about them. And Maya? Elena asked. Walsh looked at the girl who stood calmly in the center of the room, surrounded by career military officers who hung on her every word. Maya goes. God help us all, but we need every advantage we can get. The strike team consisted of 20 of Base Alpha 7's best soldiers, along with Maya and Elena. They launched from Earth aboard the UES Defiance, a modified assault cruiser designed for deep space operations. The journey to Mars would take 18 hours at maximum burn, giving them little time to prepare. Maya spent most of the trip in the ship's meditation chamber, a small room that had been specially constructed for her use. Elena found her there 6 hours into the journey, sitting cross-legged with her eyes closed, apparently in deep concentration. How are you holding up? Elena asked, settling down beside her. Maya opened her eyes, and Elena was struck by how old they looked. I can feel them, she said quietly. The others, they're scared, but they're also angry. The Zephyrians have been testing them. Elena felt her jaw clench. Testing them how? Combat scenarios. They want to understand our capabilities, our limits. They've been forcing the others to fight, to use their abilities. Maya's voice was steady, but Alina could see the rage burning behind her calm exterior. "We're going to get them out," Alina promised. Maya nodded. "I know. But Alina, when we find them, they might not be the same as they were before. The experiments changed us all differently. Some of the changes are difficult to live with." Alina studied Maya's face, seeing the weight of knowledge that no child should carry. "What aren't you telling me?" Maya was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "One of them, Marcus, he can manipulate electromagnetic fields. But he can't control it anymore. His emotions trigger massive energy discharges. The Zephyrians have been using him as a living weapon." Alina felt her heart break a little. "And the others? Sarah can heal from almost any injury, but she feels every wound as if it's happening for the first time, over and over. David has perfect recall of everything that's ever happened to him, including every moment of pain. And Zoe," Maya paused, her expression pained. "Zoe can phase through solid matter, but she's been losing the ability to control when it happens. She's been fading in and out of reality." The implications were staggering. 7 children, experimented on by aliens, each developing abilities that came with terrible costs. And now Maya, the most stable of them all, was walking into a trap to save them. "Maya," Alina said carefully, "what happens if we can't save them all?" Maya's eyes met hers, and Alina saw the steel that had been forged in the crucible of alien experimentation. "Then we make sure the Zephyrians pay for what they've done. All of it." Mars Colony Epsilon hung in the red planet's orbit like a mechanical spider, its corridors and modules extending in all directions. It had been humanity's crown jewel, a symbol of expansion and hope. Now it was a prison, its gleaming halls filled with alien soldiers and experimental horrors. The Defiance approached under stealth configuration, its hull absorbing scanner waves and its engines running silent. Maya stood on the bridge beside Alina, her enhanced senses reaching out toward the facility. 67 Zephyrian soldiers, she reported quietly. 12 researchers. And she paused, her expression growing pained. 6 of the others. I can only sense 6. Alina's heart sank. What happened to the 7th? Maya's hands clenched into fists. Marcus. They pushed him too far. He overloaded 3 days ago. The electromagnetic discharge killed him and 17 Zephyrians. The bridge fell silent. Alina placed a protective hand on Maya's shoulder, feeling the girl tremble with suppressed rage. "We make them pay," Alina said quietly. "For Marcus. For all of it." Maya nodded, her composure returning like armor sliding into place. "The others are being held in Section 7, the old medical bay. But it's heavily guarded, and they'll know we're coming the moment we breach the hull." Alina smiled grimly. "Then we don't breach the hull. We make them invite us in." The plan was Maya's idea, brilliant in its simplicity. Instead of a frontal assault, they would use Maya's abilities to turn the Zephyrians' own security against them. She could sense the guards' patrol patterns, predict their movements, and identify the weakest points in their defense. Maya and a small team would infiltrate the facility while Alina led a decoy assault on the main docking bay. It was dangerous, splitting their forces, but it was their only chance of reaching the prisoners before the Zephyrians could execute them. "Remember," Maya said as she prepared to separate from the main team, "I can handle myself. Don't risk the mission trying to protect me." Alina wanted to argue, but she knew Maya was right. The girl had been trained by the best soldiers humanity had to offer, and her enhanced abilities made her more dangerous than any 3 normal soldiers combined. "Bring them home," Alina said instead. Maya smiled, and for a moment she looked like the 12-year-old she was supposed to be. "All of them, I promise." The infiltration began at 300 ship time. Maya moved through the facility's service corridors like a ghost, her enhanced senses allowing her to avoid guards and security systems with preternatural ease. She could feel the others calling to her, their minds reaching out across the distance like beacons in the darkness. Section 7 was a nightmare of sterile white walls and humming machinery. The Zephyrians had converted the medical bay into a research laboratory, complete with holding cells and monitoring equipment. Maya's heart broke as she saw what had been done to her fellow survivors. Sarah sat in one cell, her body covered in scars that healed and reopened in an endless cycle. The Zephyrians had been testing her regenerative abilities by inflicting fresh wounds daily. In another cell, David rocked back and forth, his perfect memory forcing him to relive every moment of torment in crystal-clear detail. Zoe was the worst. She flickered in and out of solid existence, sometimes visible, sometimes just a ghostly outline. Her control over her phasing ability had deteriorated to the point where she could barely maintain physical form. Maya. Sarah's voice was barely a whiz.